Hello, Extratime.
It's time to the league not to get a hype because it damages your reputation. It makes people, when they read it, just laugh at you.
The single club, they're playing in the League One and they're playing in the Europa League and they're credit to the game in this country. Maybe we should get Stephen Kenny down to manage the Irish team.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Extratime Football Podcast. Your host Luke George, right at Macdara, Ferris, now same again. Macdara, how are you?
I'm good, Luke. How are you getting on?
I'm good. You're back in Dublin?
Back in Dublin, yeah. Went to more European football, but European club football this week. So yeah, I was at the Shamrock Rovers Vikingur game on Tuesday night, and we've got the two other games coming up this week: the Shelbourne game in Gibraltar and the Derry game in Derry. They're up both playing Gibraltar opposition, and then we've the FAI Cup this weekend. So yeah, it's busy week. Lots of football ahead of us and some good games.
Are you guys back in Dublin after your escapades away in Berlin and Hamburg and so on?
Yeah, it's always nice to come home. But yeah, I did enjoy the trip to the Euros. Yeah.
What's your overall thoughts on the tournament before we wrap up their kind of Euro chat?
Yeah, there was a bit of discussion. I think it was a good tournament. I think people were entertained. I think the World Cup in Qatar, the group stages weren't great, and the knockout stages were brilliant. There were some absolutely epic games, including an epic final. I think the group stages in the Euros were pretty good. I think the format with all the final round games was something to play for, not for both teams. I didn't think the quality in the knockout stage was, maybe as good as people kind of hoped, but there was still some excellent ties. The likes of I think we saw some good players come through. Obviously, Spain won. The likes of Nico Williams and Yamal. I was surprised at how old Olmo was. I thought he was younger than that. And then we talked about Arda Güler for Turkey. I think some people, including maybe myself, realised just how good Rodri was. Maybe I kind of underestimated how good he was. I think it was a tournament back to big traveling teams, big sport, big atmospheres. And I think it was a really good final. And I think most of us were probably breathing a sigh of relief that England didn't win. But I think when a team that goes through the tournament, winning 7 games, not needing penalties, I think there was only one game went to extra time, the one against Germany for Spain. And England were not the best team. And if they'd won the tournament, it would have been a bit of a travesty. I think they made the most of their side of the draw. I think disappointing to see maybe how the likes of maybe France played and things like that. But I think overall, I think people will have enjoyed the tournament and they'll look back with with fondness at the tournament. And you kind of, as an Ireland fan, you just wish Jesus it would be right to get to one of those tournaments. Because when we do get there, we do tend to get out of the group, unlike Scotland.
Is there, just picking up in the comment there about knockout stage maybe being a bit of a damn squid in some of the games, is there more merit now, you think, when you compare it to the Qatar World Cup, that there's actually it's a good idea to have mid-season international tournaments? I thought at the time I was kind of against it because it would affect kind of the schedules of all the players and that kind of thing. But when you look back now in hindsight and say, well, the players were mid-season, fully fit, the excitement of the games, and just like Bellingham probably as an example of a player went through the tournament, he looked incredibly tired. As a player who was excellent for 30-odd games for Real Madrid, to see him play in the tournament, well, he started well the first game against Serbia, I think, but just as an example, he died through the tournament, as in just looked like he physically wilted nearly. And I'm wondering, is that an example there of if that was a mid-season tournament, would I'm just wondering, maybe is there actually more merit now to this kind of idea, maybe of in the future UEFA and FIFA look at the idea of, well, maybe we do have mid-season tournaments, the players are in better condition.
I think the point you make, I think maybe that is a reason why the knockout stages in the Qatar World Cup was as good, because the players weren't as tired. Like Bellingham wasn't great in the Champions League final. That was his last domestic game. I think he had come through the season as well. I think you look elsewhere, the African Cup of Nations is on during the season. If we're talking kind of European football, the Copa America was happening at the same time. So yeah, I think that's a play. But they're trying to shoehorn everything in because they've now got this Club World Cup that they're expanding out as well. Like the next, The next World Cup has like a round of 16, is a round of 32 in there, which adds it in. So I don't know. They're really trying to flog the players at this stage, and maybe that is a reason why the knockout stages weren't as good as the ones in Qatar. But the standard of play, I think, you look at a World Cup with the likes of Argentina, the likes of Brazil, some of the sides from not necessarily Asia, but I think some of the African sides really add to the tournament. Whereas before, I think it was quite insular. You would have, Germany aren't as strong as they were. France probably on the way out. England was probably a tournament too far because they were very good
Mm.
in previous tournaments. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. Like it's difficult to see, but I don't suspect they're going to move the calendar around to have um kind of mid-season tournaments in the future. I don't know. Would they? Probably not. Like I was saying, if they had a World Cup in Australia, but they had the Women's World Cup in June, July, so it didn't change for that.
Rodri was your player of the tournament then, or you think he was the
Yeah,
right person with that?
well, he picked up that award. There was the UEFA Technical Advisors, there's about maybe 12 or 13 of them. Packy Bonner representing Ireland on that list. Michael O'Neill, Northern Ireland manager, on that list as well. So they gave him player of the tournament. I think I grew to appreciate him more than maybe I suppose I said before. Watch Premier League, but I don't watch it like week in, week out. So I probably haven't seen him as much. Like, he obviously did score the winning goal in the Champions League final in Turkey, 2 seasons ago. But he was very, very impressive and kind of a linchpin, an experienced player that can do an awful lot. He'll do I mentioned Didier Deschamps, but he'll do the water carrier stuff, but so much more. Like he can play a defense spinning pass. He always just seems to take the right option. I think his pass completion rate was up above 90%.
The big thing with the term that I took was, this kind of comparison between Declan Rice and Rodri. It's just they're not in the same
Yeah.
stratosphere in terms of how they play. Just Rodri's on a different level. A couple of quick points then, from your own. Two things: A, your favorite player you watched in the tournament, and B, the favorite thing what's the most impressive thing you saw in Germany, or any you enjoyed seeing or visiting or outside of football.
Yeah, I really enjoyed watching Xavi Simons play. So, because I saw the Dutch 3 times and I thought he was really, really good. And I suppose I knew him as a player, but actually to see him up close, I mentioned Goulet as well. So they were kind of, I suppose you were looking at a couple of players that maybe, um, you wouldn't have known a huge amount coming into the tournament. So, in relation to something that I enjoyed, I suppose just the tournament as a whole, compared with, the previous Euros was all over Europe in different places, and it just felt like something that was made for television. You just watch the matches, and they could have been anywhere. I think people did get a feel, even if you're watching from home, that the tournament was on in Germany. So I think from that point of view, and then I have mentioned before, like with the Qatar World Cup, there was small amounts of traveling fans. So even if you were watching on television in the stadium, there wasn't that atmosphere because there wasn't a huge amount of supporters. And obviously, if you're in the stadium, it was very similar. And then the other thing was, it was just that tournament was so artificial, because it was in the size of a location the size of, what was it, Wexford. Whereas this, you had a feel for actually the tournament was moved. So Hamburg was different from Berlin, was different from Munich, which kind of stood out from that point of view. And I think we'll probably look back fondly on this tournament because the next World Cup will be 32 teams right across. Sorry, more than that. But in terms of, it's going to be America, Canada, and Mexico. It's going to
Yeah.
be super well spread. So I think we'll probably look back on this tournament maybe more fondly. So I think people remember this was like Germany Euro 2024, and that's a tournament you can picture in your mind. You can picture the yellow wall, be it whatever team was there. They had that. Munich looks quite different. I've talked a lot about what the Olympic Stadium in Berlin is like as well. So I think when you look back on clips and that, you'll be able to go, actually, yeah, that was that World Cup. So I think it had a sense of its own tournament, local to what it was and local to the time, maybe compared to other tournaments where, as I say, the last one was all over Europe, and it kind of was a good idea, but I don't think COVID helped from that point of view.
No, I think at least this tournament ran well in terms of there seemed to be very little kind of issues off the pitch in terms of crowd trouble around that. Like you compare what's happened in America, in the Copa America and the World
Yeah,
Cup,
that
like you mentioned there
was
in 2 years,
yeah.
like that doesn't look like a great precedent going into the next tournament. But anyway, that's for a discussion another day. Last point really on the tournament and kind of leans into maybe an Irish conversation. Gareth Southgate had resigned. It means there'll be a New England manager in the dugout come the 7th of September. There could possibly be an interim manager, says the FA. They're hoping to have a manager in place. Interim manager, who do you think could be possibly for England?
Well, I presume all the talk is Lee Carsley if they're
Lee
going to go
Carsley.
interim because because he's within the FA, his contract to the FA. I don't. It's very hard if they were going to appoint an interim manager, who's already in a job somewhere high up. But I think it's to benefit to Ireland that whatever happens, that it's a new manager, and if it's an interim manager, even better from our point of view. That England won't be there'll be a different type of animal compared to if Southgate was still in charge. And I'm not surprised that he's no longer the manager.
No.
But whoever comes in won't have a huge amount of time to work with the team. And as we mentioned about players getting flogged, like those England players that are playing in the Premier League will get. Well, actually, they'll all get a couple of weeks off, but they're not going to be as well rested as maybe certainly as the Ireland players are, who will have had a break and will have a proper pre-season. Where those England players will, have a break and they'll be coming back in kind of a little bit through pre-season and mentally, they'll be back within the camp and hopefully they'll bring back bad memories of losing a game when they're back in together.
We haven't actually spoken since the new appointment of the Irish manager, Heimir Hallgrímsson. Where were you when the announcement was made? Can you remember where you were when you sat down and were shocked by probably disappointment? Because I don't think anyone really such a field appointment. No one expected this one.
It all came through very quickly because the FAI seemed to the secrecy is they're taking huge positives from it. But text came through and I have to admit I had to go. I didn't know who he was. I had to Google. Maybe I should have remembered that that he was the mastermind to be the manager that was last beat England in the European Championships up until Sunday, because that was the last time England had lost a European tie. They'd been eliminated from the European Championships on penalties. So it was obviously a big surprise. I'm not surprised it was a surprise appointment because we knew, people had been ruled out all the way along, and kind of when it wasn't going to be John O'Shea, it was always really going to be somebody from left field, and that's what we've got. And I think if the press conference was, and I looked at the live stuff online, it was handled pretty badly because it was a week where the FAI were after coming out because of the historical sex abuse scandal that was there. It was also going head to head with the Women's International, and they had a brilliant win against France in Cork the other night, which is really helpful for their playoff for their European Championships.
It did feel shoehorned, didn't it? It felt shoehorned.
Oh, absolutely. But Heimir seemed to handle it very well, and any bits that I heard him speak, he spoke very well. And I listened to, I think it was Nick Ames was on Second Captains. He's chief sports writer with the Guardian, and he had gone out to Heimir when they'd beaten England and they'd qualified for the World Cup. Philip O'Connor, who works at Reuters, he'd been the Iceland reporter at the World Cup when Iceland were there in 2018. And he wrote an article in the Examiner, spoke very highly of them. Raf Diallo had a Icelandic journalist on the RTE soccer podcast, and he was very positive. So I think we can all kind of give out about the process was a shambles, even to get this point. And then when they announced them, it really could have been handled better. Maybe they should have just announced it and said, right, we're going to have a press conference on Wednesday. But maybe they just didn't want, as in this week, maybe they just didn't want to leave that vacuum. But everyone wishes them well, and that's great. I don't think anyone from what I've seen, any of the commentators, I don't think anyone was looking at the appointment and going, "Oh, that's the wrong appointment." So hopefully that's a positive. But it is a real difficulty. They hadn't got the backroom staff lined up, and he'll have very, very little time going into that England game at Wembley.
The timeline I find interesting because while Cannon was going on about how, you know, he was obviously, I remember in March time he was talking about this, or was it April when he said that we can't appoint a manager yet,
I'm just on board with
obligations. But I just find, I think because like he initially wanted to appoint him in April, but he was never going to leave in April because he was already contractually agreed to do the job with Jamaican in the.
I'm just sorry. I'm just bored with it. I'm like, and I understand why the questions were being asked last week, and people were trying to like parse it. But at the end of the day, he's the manager, and we just need to, I was also sorry. Someone else who talks quite positively about him was Joe Callan, who was out at the Euros, and Joe had covered Jamaica's playoff win over Canada. So he'd been at some press conferences ahead of the match and post match, and spoke quite, favorably about him as well. But I'm just, you get my exasperation. If we could just move on now.
On a positive note, his track record in international football is good. Like, I think that's the main takeaway from this, that regardless how he got here, he's got here, and
yes,
he's now our manager. And you look at the track record on paper, for the budget we have, for the caliber manager we can actually attract, there's probably not more candidates out there that would be queuing up with someone of his CV to take this job. Like, what's he on, 650? Is that the report?
Yeah, it's around that. Yeah.
And he fits the FDI criteria. He's going to move to Ireland. He was asked that, I think, by Tony Donoghue or RTE about was he going to move to Ireland. He said,
he is.
Again, that was a real kind of non-negotiable with the FDI, that apparently wanted a manager on the ground here, living here. So, look, he fits the. I think for an international manager that we didn't know maybe much about maybe 2 weeks ago, but if you look at his track record, Iceland the 2 tournaments, involved with Jamaica and the Cup, I know didn't go well for him, but he's qualified for international tournaments with limited squads. This squad's probably slightly better than Iceland's squad in 2018 and 2016, I would say, going on paper.
Yeah.
So there's some positivity to take from this appointment. Like I said, not ideal that he has no prep now in his first game. Is a competitive match against England, which is the first time since probably 92, was it? That last time we had a competitive game?
Yeah, because we played a friendly. We did play a friendly in Wembley pre-COVID. I'm trying to remember what year, maybe 2018, maybe a little bit earlier.
We played them 2013, the long game. Never Shane Long at the header. And then we played them in Jack Charlton's out of the pitch. That was 2015, I think, when it was the 0-0 game. And we played them during COVID. That was the whole Kenny debacle when Duff walked away. So let's not open that wound. But in the last competitive game around 92, 93, I think it's last time we played them. So again, tough task for him. But like I said, if you're going to pick a manager with a decent international kind of pedigree, I think the FAI have done a very decent job if they'd make a whole balls the process.
Yeah.
Really quick then is the roundup, kind of maybe just a little bit of League of Ireland news last couple of days as we record on Wednesday. A couple of signings going this week actually. There, Greg Cunningham to Galway, a return for Cunningham. Yeah,
I think it's great to see someone who started out. I think he played football with Merview, and I think he was playing championship football this year. What's his age? Is he 32 maybe?
I think he's 33 this year.
Yeah, so somebody's bringing good bit of experience coming back into the League of Ireland, and we've seen that with various players down the years. Joey O'Brien being one I can think of. Damien Duff. There's been various. Not playing at such a high level. Yeah, Keefe. Porrick Almond didn't play at that level now. Cunningham has, but has come back. Haven't played at that lower level and has done really, really well. So I really like to see that. But obviously it's a bit of cash down in Galway.
And you have also Dawson Devoy coming back this week for Bohemians, which is a big it's a big player to get back from them, but it's probably the one area of the pitch where they actually have a lot of body state as central midfield. Yeah. But nonetheless, having Dawson Devoy in your squad makes them a stronger team.
Oh yeah, and you must be really pleased with the Pat signing of Zach Albazetti.
That's my third point. Yeah, Zach Albazetti coming in. Stephen Kenny loves wingers, so it's no surprise that he's gone out and got one that he knows fairly well in 21s. And I think it's fair to say when Stephen Kenny was 21s manager, he was probably one of the star men.
Yeah,
So again, that's an excellent sign. So yeah, again, the transfer window's kind of heating up now. A few players coming in. I'd be intrigued to see. Do you think Rovers will come? We'll chat with Rovers now in a second. They're kind of European exploits last night, but do you expect Rovers to go into the market?
I don't know. They haven't really done that. They haven't done too much of it before. Um, like whether Rory Gaffney's still out, so whether they bring another striker in, maybe if they feel that Gaffney isn't going to come back anytime soon. He always seems to be the last one on that injury list of still not available. Because they've done really well with Johnny Kenny. So, are they going to? We talked a little bit about the goalkeeping situation. Are they going to go out and buy a goalkeeper? I honestly don't know. But they've tended not to do much transfer business in the mid-season. But they're in a position now where they know we're going to talk money as well. But they're going to play 3 more rounds in Europe, and they're guaranteed 1.7 million. So they have. The situation might have been different if they'd been eliminated out of the Champions League on Tuesday night. Now they're in a position where they do have a bit of money, but as people are well aware, they lost something like 2 million last year. So I don't know, to be honest.
Well, let's talk about the game last night. First of all, performance. I think first half, it's fair to say, Shamrock Rovers were good. I thought in the first half it could have been 3-4 maybe. They a couple of occasions where they broke through that high line of Vikingur. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm going to say Vikingur.
Yeah, Vikingur, I think, is how I heard Conor Murphy describe it. Yeah.
We'll go with the professional Vikingur. I think the first half performance I think was very good for Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, it was because what I liked about the performance, both the way to more extent rather than on Tuesday night, was they changed the style of play. Like Rovers have played 3 at the back for virtually all the time Stephen Bradley's been in charge, and they've played out from the back. They've gone to places like Ferris and tried to play it from the back and got caught. Now, I'm not suggesting that Vikingur are at the same level as Ferris, but it was very noticeable that Shamrock Rovers played completely different. And actually, the Vikingur manager said that after the game. He said, they played completely different from, we hadn't seen them play like that because they hadn't. I think the only time maybe there was a game against Dundalk last year in Tallaght where Rovers sat deep and they picked Dundalk off a couple of times. I think it was the 2-0 win on the break, and they gave up. I think they had about 40% of the ball. Away from home, Rovers had 23% of the ball, and they had less of the ball last night as well. And what was noticeable was the goal kicks. They went long again away from home. They normally go long only 20% of the time. They went long 60% of the time. So they, Vikingur would have been looking at Y-Scout or Huddle, or looking at all the videos that Rovers play, and they never would have seen Rovers play that way. And they really exploited Johnny Kenny. He had a couple of chances in the first leg. One of them he probably should have scored. I think he said that with some audio with Johnny Kenny coming up, but I think he talked about that. That was the one that he dinked over. But last night he took his 2 goals really well. He one that just went past the post in the second half. No Rovers player, don't think it ever scored a hat trick in Europe. So they played really well, and then they kind of sat back, obviously, at 2-0, and at half time it was like, no, this is good. But then the yellow cards. There was player ill-discipline was poor. Like this Champions League has been played under the new rules, like the Euros. So only the captain's supposed to be speaking to the referee. So there was kind of some back chat. Jack Byrne got booked for kind of throwing the ball away, but he was also a bit of a throwing a strop. And then the second yellow card was just kind of silly. And then they had practice in the away leg with 10 men, and then they had to do it for over 20 minutes. And Rovers were quite happy to sit back. They basically set up to say, listen, yeah, you can get the ball wide and put it in the box. We're going to head it away. Like they brought Lee Grace on, but there was just one they didn't kind of clear. They were looking for a foul. Dan Cleary was pushed at the end when Vikingur got the penalty but it wasn't given, and then Lopez kind of dived in on your man, kind of upended him, and then it went to that penalty. So it's on these really, really small margins that it happens. But I think if you look at the this. I think if you look at the way they played, it was really defensive. It was really disciplined, and they had to play. I think 10 minutes plus injury time with 10 men in the away leg, and over 20 minutes plus injury time in this one. But they managed to get through, and it's so important to win that first round of the Champions League. Only going back to 2011, Irish teams have only managed to win the first round of the Champions League 4 times, and 3 of those times they've gone on to group stage football. So it's really, really important, and it's given them the opportunity. They're guaranteed 3 more rounds. They win one of them, and they'll go to group stage football. They're guaranteed 1.74 million. That's their base. That's up from, I think it's about 400,000 more than. So the UEFA's kind of up the prize money. And they're playing Sparta Prague in the next round. I think realistically they'll go out at that stage of the Champions League. They'll drop into the 3rd round of the Europa League qualifying, and they'll be in the Champions path. So they'll play a team that has been dumped out of the Champions League as well. So they're not going to play somebody at a high ranked country that kind of comes in at that 3rd level. Little bit unsure as to whether they'll be seeded or not. I think it's a bit up in the air. And then even if they lose that 3rd qualifying round, they go into the Conference League playoff round, and again the Champions route. So it just gives them that kind of extra opportunity. The other thing is, because they were champions, they always had that back door. So they were always going to play 2 home games. But now the win last night means they'll have 4 home games in Europe at a minimum. There was 7,600 at the game last night. That's a gate of over €100,000. Now the costs for going away are quite high. So generally your home gate will cover your costs to go away. I'd imagine Prague isn't that expensive to go, maybe compared with going to the likes of Albania, or maybe going to Serbia or
places.
Exactly. Now there might be opportunities, and the draw might send them that direction. But the fact that they've got the new north stand open. So last night, 3 sides of the ground were basically full, and the east stand where the cameras were, that's where the away crowd were. But Rovers have the potential to, there's no season tickets, so you have to go and buy the tickets. So to get 7,600 for that game, I think was pretty good. They
and
couldn't
I'd
really
imagine
have
that
more.
the Czech fans will bring more, I would say, to that game. And then you're talking probably the gate of maybe conservatively saying 8,000 at that game next week.
And Rovers, if they sell more than 8,000, they'll be able to sell some of the seats in the east stand. So the likes of when Pats and Bows and Shells come, sometimes they'll use part of the ground to home, part of the east stand to house home fans. So it's, they get those 2 extra gates where they should have decent sides, and it gives them a really good chance to go through. And then just money wise, Dan McDonald had an article in the Irish Independent today about Sinclair Armstrong, which is like, it's not quite the Matt Doherty slow burn that Bowes got for their sell-on clause for Doherty with Wolves. But Sinclair Armstrong made his debut for Rovers as a 15-year-old in the FAI Cup away to Drogheda in 2018. And he did play for the Rovers second team, the first division, in 2020, but they sold him to QPR and they got a 20% sell-on clause, 25% sell-on clause. So it looks like maybe Bristol City, he might be going to for about 3 million. So it's been a good week financially for Shamrock Rovers, and a good week football-wise. And in terms of
they're richer by 2.4 million essentially this week.
Yeah, and I suppose just to, maybe just pedal back and just talk about the pure drama of what Tuesday night was like. So I did notice that I've got 3 different video vlog people were at the game on Tuesday night that had been sent to me on the WhatsApp. But in terms of drama, I don't think the referee was very good. This Premier League guy, I think there was a couple of fouls he really should have given in injury time. And then
let's just say he wasn't the most popular person in Tallaght on Tuesday night. Yeah,
and then to this penalty kick that the Icelandic captain had to take it. It was a penalty kick essentially worth €1 million. I think back to Stephen O'Donnell's penalty kick for Shamrock Rovers in Belgrade in 2011, which was essentially a €1 million penalty kick. But that one last night, with the way prize money has gone,
it's an expensive miss by Nicolas Hansen, let's just say.
And like the width of the posts in the 97th, 98th minute, and literally the referee blew it up. So, like, talk about absolute drama. I think anyone that went to the game on Tuesday night was kind of a neutral or maybe a fair weather fan. They'd be like, "Oh, I'm going back for more." So yeah, absolute pure drama that you get in the likes of these European ties, you know.
Yeah, I think Stephen Bradley called it a special night as well. So what we'll do is have a little listen to Stephen Bradley first, and then we'll listen to the goal scorer on the night, Johnny Kenny.
I don't think I could have too many more nights like that, you know. It was every emotion going. It was special night, like, you know. We spoke before the game with the players about creating a special memory and opportunities like tonight, games like tonight allow you the chance to do that. And they've done that, you know. They've been brilliant. They've played a special night. And then, you know, before the officials tell them it's over, just before he gives it, and our players are adamant it's a foul just before we fell down, they're pushing the back. But when he steps up, you're thinking if this goes to extra time, we're in for a long night, because 10 men, they're a good side, they move it well, they get the ball way across it. So you're hoping and praying that you miss it. But to be fair to the players, if you go away over there, go down to 10 men last 15, come here, start like we did, first 50 minutes, get a man sent off, and dig in, I think you earned that bit of luck, to be fair. I thought you were brilliant. Yeah, because we know, like we spoke about yesterday, a few of us, that we know what opportunities open up now, like, you know. So it's a really important game, and look, we're against a very good side, like, you know. So, you know, over there we have to play completely different to our norm. We did that. Should win the game over there, and tonight I thought we knew they wouldn't expect how we played early on. We knew they'd be open and still try and play their game. That's what they do, and we caught them twice in the first 30 minutes, and that was the pleasing part. That what we did over there was brilliant in terms of different type, and tonight then we went really on the front foot and took the game away from them, which was really pleasing to see. I think right now, and this year has been the best forward in the country by a mile, you know. I think last year we spoke that all the stats were pointing towards this for Johnny. He just wasn't scoring. We knew we need to refine different parts of his game, but everything was pointing towards the season he's having at the moment. And it took a bit of adjusting us to get used to him to get used to us, when to come and play, when to spin, when to hold it, all of that. There's a lot, and we defend really aggressive at our forward, so we had to learn a lot last year. But all the stats were pointing towards what we're seeing now. We've seen over there the problems he could cause them. And we knew tonight if we got a press right, because they'd be open, that he could cause them real problems. And once he's in on goal, one-on-one with the defender, you fancy him against anyone there. Yeah, well, the game should have been over. Dara should square for Johnny. I asked the forward, he was onside, just square, and it's game over. They're the little bits that we need to be better at and be ruthless. And then you're not hanging on at the end. It's game over, it's 3-1. So that's what I think we deserved, and we earned it. But the players, since the draw's made, that's all they'll be hearing and seeing. They're on social media. It's only natural that they hear and see that. It's my job to try and stay focused and stay away from the possibilities of what ifs, and not get caught up in that. We understand what it can be, because we obviously made groups a few years ago. So we understand the paths that can open up. But you have to stay focused on the job in hand, and you have to understand that when it's a team, I think there's 10 internationals in this squad. When it's a proper team, so you've got to stay focused on the job. And I thought we did that really well. Yeah, it's a big game. It's a big challenge. They're a top tier team in terms of everything about them. But look, we'll go into that. We'll look after that when it comes round. Now it's about enjoying this night. Nights like this are special. Enjoy it. And then we really want to be in the cup final. We really want to go and win the cup, and that starts on Friday over in Dagenham. So enjoy tonight, recover, and then tomorrow full focus on balls and Friday.
Obviously scoring early in every game is big, but I knew after last week I'd get opportunities in behind them, and thankfully today I took the first chance we got. Kinda. I think last week personally, there's only one chance that you'd be expected to score is the one I think. The other one's very hard. But every striker misses. They're not going to score every shot. If they did, I don't know. But like all the strikers in this league, every striker misses chances. It's just how you deal with them. Oh yeah, it's massive. All the teammates get behind every player and try and make them as confident as they can be, and just like scoring goals is what I love to do and winning games. But yeah, I just think the running games is having an isolation. It's massive. Coming up against Prague next week is going to be special, as Liverpool knocked them out, and they're one of the best teams in the world. I can't wait to go and test ourselves and see where we are compared to that. It's probably not right to say, but I think it is a free hit because they're a serious side and probably a level above us, but what have we to lose?
Quick word on Stephen Bradley. I think to sum up his emotions post-match when we were chatting to him, he seemed like a very relieved man that it maybe didn't go to extra time. So I'm not sure his heart would have took it.
Oh yeah, well I think they'd have been beaten in extra time. I think to go 50 minutes at that point without conceding a goal, and they didn't really threaten going forward because they just pulled them all back. I think he was pleased that he got one over on the opposition manager in the way he kind of set up his team, and it also, you know, it's not all about money, but if they didn't win on Tuesday night, you looked at some of the players that are potentially out of contract and what they could offer them at the end of the season. I think like Graham Burke is one player that's out of contract. Like, you know, if they don't have that money, if they don't have, you know, potentially European games. I'm trying not to get carried away, but just a reminder that if Rovers do get to the Europa League group stages, there's actually 8 games this year with the Swiss model, and there's games right through to middle of December and then 2 in January. So, you know, you potentially are offering that to players as well. And then maybe just a quick word on Johnny Kenny, because I think Stephen Bradley talked about the stats as well. And I did have a look at that. Like Johnny Kenny's got, I think it's 11 league goals and his XG is 11.25. So like he's scoring what he's expected to get. He's got more shots than any other player in the league, so 60, more than Graham Burke, who does love a shot from any type of distance. And you know, Kenny, he probably felt a little bit, you know, that he should have scored in the away leg. So it was a redemption last night for him to get. I think he's really blossomed.
And his
this
first
season.
goal in particular, Macdara, was excellent. I mean,
Yeah.
probably a little maybe special mention to Dylan Watts too for his 2 assists. Especially
brilliant
the second one was excellent, just the way he danced by through the first. But in fairness to him, the first goal in particular, when through and goal, and sometimes you've heard so many previous strikers talking podcasts and TV and so on, when you've longer to think about it, it's often worse. And he'd have taken that ball a good distance, come back here on his left and put away the goalkeeper. It was an exceptional finish.
Yeah, so I think because people were wondering, Rovers fans were wondering, was he worth re-signing after his performance last year? But any doubters have been put into place by his league performances, and to score 2 goals like that and essentially win them the match last night, and all that means kind of over the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, and to finish up as well, Stephen Bradley and Johnny Kenny both mentioned about how the cup is really important. That's where you are this week as well, aren't you? On Dalymount Park?
Yeah, so I'll be at Dalymount Park for cup game. Yeah, and when Rovers played Bows in the cup in the middle of Europe a couple of years ago, they dumped them out. I think was that Andy Lyons maybe got the winner. So and Bows have those new signings as well. So yeah, it should be an interesting game.
Right there, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.
And before we go, there's a quick look through the fixtures coming up this weekend, starting with Thursday night's games in the Europa Conference League. Shells go into their tie with St. Joseph's 2-1 up after a good win in Tallaght Park last week, while Derry have it all to do. They are 2-0 down after their first leg defeat to Magpies. They're at home though in the Brandywell, so a chance to turn it around. And as mentioned earlier on, the FEI Cup second round is on this weekend. Start with the Friday night games. Here's some of the selected matches for you. Galway United Longford Town, Drogheda United Dundalk, Cove Ramblers Kerry, and Bohemians Shamrock Rovers. On Saturday then we have Cork City and Finn Harps. And then on Sunday we have a couple of big games as well. Shells go to the Carlisle Grounds to face Bray, and Derry City face St. Patrick's Athletic in the Brandywell. That game is a 6 p.m. kickoff in Derry. There'll be no Voice Notes podcast this weekend. However, on Sunday we'll be recording our reaction to the FEI Cup games and the European games from Thursday night. So that'll be in your podcast feeds late Sunday evening or more than likely early Monday. So please check that out. And lastly, we have a new feature now to add to our podcast. We now have a WhatsApp number for you guys to get in touch and hear your thoughts on what's happening in Irish football. You can send us a text, you can give us a voice note, and you never know, you could be lucky to have your voice or your text read on the podcast. To get in touch, the number is 089 429 5932. And that number is up on our x/twitter.com profile. I want to thank Macdara Ferris. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll chat to you all next week.